Well, let's bring John into the conversation. We got football at 4, XFL, NFL, all the football right here. And, John, the XFL, they've been kind of touting that, hey, gambling, we're going to talk about it. They put the point spreads up there. But the betting started off pretty slowly this week. Is that a good sign, bad sign, indifferent?
Indifferent from a business perspective. I think they're just trying to be more open-minded, which I don't think is necessarily a bad thing. But I've talked about with the NFL. I mean, the NFL is the gambling sport of all gambling sports. But even that, I mean, it doesn't mean anything really to their bottom line. It means certainly something to the sports books. And that's why the NFL fought it for so long, because it doesn't, until they can monetize it themselves, they don't really care. It doesn't make much difference to them. So if we ever get to that point, I mean, if you go back to the AAF and they made that big deal about the app and how it was going to transform society, which was absurd, but nonetheless, if somebody can tap in and try to monetize it themselves, and by that I mean the actual sports, the actual leagues, then it might become more relevant. But why the weekend was a home run is what you mentioned, Mike, 18-49,
yeah,
1-4.
I saw you tweeting about that. I wanted to see the impact of that, because we have talked about their television deal down the road. The only way this league is going to make it is if they get a television deal where they're not sharing the production cost, or the current deal they have is not sustainable.
No, it's not. It's a very good deal for a startup because of the platforms. And they do. I mean, Fox, they're not sharing in the production. I mean, Fox and ESPN and ABC, they're producing it. So from that perspective, it's really good.
Is that different from AAF?
Yeah. The platform itself is just much larger in the fact that you don't have to spend out that money for production costs, which is pretty significant. But, I mean, it's a drop in the bucket compared to rights fees, which is what the NFL is king of. And even in the NFL, which is, depending who you talk to, they're up to about 15, 16 billion in annual revenue. Half of that comes directly from TV rights, actually a little bit more than half. And I kind of explained this. That doesn't even express the enormity of those rights, because those rights and those platforms generate so much other revenue that you can't even put a number on. In other words, if you don't have those TV vehicles and those platforms, well, the league's not as popular. Merchandising goes down. Ticket sales goes down. Corporate deals go down. Everything goes down without television. So even when you say it's 50%, it's really, from a practical standpoint, the whole industry is propped up on television. And that's not just the NFL. That's the NBA. That's Major League Baseball. That's everything. Mm-hmm. So that is the ultimate goal, that getting a TV rights deal. And that's why Vince McMahon restarted this league, because he got a massive deal for WWE, and he saw the landscape and everything keeps going up and up and up. And he said, you know what? People are going to pay for that this time. Now, and they weren't going to pay for it last time.
Do you know, I don't, unfortunately, I say unfortunately, I do not get to watch the WWE like I used to. And quite frankly, I have not seen SmackDown since it's moved to Fox. Do they cross-promote the games during SmackDown, the XFL? Do you know that?
I haven't seen since it started. Certainly Fox has been cross-promoting on NFL telecasts, so I imagine they will. But I don't know that for certain. I don't see why they wouldn't. It's under the Fox Sports banner, so I'm sure they are going to do that, but I wasn't paying attention to see if they did. But yeah, I'm sure there's going to be a crossover.
I have a lot of interesting, coverage questions here. Now, you were at the New York game on Sunday, New York and Tampa. Was there a big contingency of media covering the game?
There was a decent amount, about 75, 80 people. So that's about really the entire, if you've ever been to MetLife Stadium, the entire first row was taken up, and a little bit of the second row. And at an NFL game, there's 3 rows, and they're all just packed to the gills. So there's not as much interest, obviously, as expected in the NFL, but there was significant interest, certainly.
Yeah. Now, I'm interested, like, what do you think would have to happen? Like, ESPN is covering it because they are carrying the games, but to where there's interest in player movement and rumors and free agency and like, because like that's where I think a league like this is like, when is their off season? What kind of interest is there? What kind of, like, I don't know that people are going to be paying attention to these teams on that level.
No, I don't think they are, because it is a lower level of player, and the best players are going to immediately sign NFL deals. I mean, that's what's going to happen. And then you kind of restart. It's almost a year-to-year thing. So but remember, the Oscars was down, I think, 6 million viewers. Everything in television is plummeting. So the landscape has changed. I notice everyone the first version of the XFL had massive ratings week 1. It's a different environment.
I think 15 million people watched that.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's completely different. If you do 15 million today on network television, you're a massive hit. Massive. Whereas in the old days, you had 40 million viewers for television shows. And now, as you said, the XFL is doing basically 2.5 to 3.5 million viewers. And you say, if you compare that to 20 years ago or even further, it looks terrible. But today, as you mentioned, in the most important demo in sports, and the NBA is going on, the NHL is going on, there's golf. Number 1, number 2, number 3, and number 4. So that kind of tells you where you are in the fact that they're able to put together those numbers. Now, it's only 1 week. If it continues, it's a success. TV is that desperate to get some kind of fixed audience.
I think an interesting part, and Gil's onto something here, like, what about midweek? So week 1's in the books, and you're the perfect example, John, for NFL. I mean, football at 4 is our bread and butter here, and especially in season, Monday to Friday. Like, that's where the fun is. That's where all the news is generated, is leading up to game day, right? So the XFL, I feel like, has gone quiet. They fired a defensive coordinator. I forget which team, and that says a lot right there.
The LA Wildcats. How could you? Pepper Johnson has been there since the inception of the LA Wildcats.
I know, that's a shame on me, but is that a move that was pre-planned? Like I don't know. Like, how do they generate midweek?
Well, I think I think if you're going to compare it to the NFL, if you compare
it's not
everything,
fair. I know that.
Yeah, it's to the NFL. If you compare the NBA to the NFL, it's not.
Yeah.
It just doesn't hold up.
But just format-wise.
Can you compare
when we start getting into the combine and the pre-draft stuff, and I would say the off season is even a bigger deal in a lot of ways than in season for the NFL. I mean, it's just a juggernaut. You're not going to have that ancillary interest in anything.
Sure.
I look at Major League Baseball. When I was growing up, Major League Baseball was number 1 at the beginning. And now nobody cares about it, to the point they've got a clown show of a change in postseason to placate a fan base that doesn't exist. They're trying to get younger people who don't like the game. You've already lost it.
Yeah.
And you're trying to create a reality television show around your playoffs, the game most based on tradition. So if you compare anything to the NFL, it's going to look bad.
Right.
But for a secondary league it's a good start. That's all I'll say. It was a really good start. It was a better start than I expected.
Yeah, and I wasn't like literally comparing it. It's just compared to the NFL, like the model's obviously similar or the same. They play once a week. They're playing on the weekends. But now they had a good first weekend, which a lot of people predicted. The second week and the third week that's when we're going to find out what this league's going to be about. But I guess, how do they market it now? Like, they did a good job, I think, marketing it leading up to week one. Week one's in the books. Now you're in between game weeks. Like, are they doing enough? How do they generate player marketing and team marketing and all that stuff? I had a buddy text me this morning, who should I root for in the XFL? I'm like, I don't know. I mean, figure it out.
Yeah, I mean, there's certain, like St. Louis and Seattle, from a ticket standpoint, have been their best markets. I think they have 10,000 season tickets out in both. And those teams weren't at home this week, so maybe the crowds get a little bit better. Certainly the people in D.C. seem to enjoy it, and I think those smaller venues are going to end up working out better than the larger venues. But as far as generating interest during the week, look, I'll be honest. They have one goal, and it's not about placating the fan base. It's not about getting the people excited. It's about making Fox and ABC happy. I mean, That's the goal. And from that standpoint, it's like, as I said, ABC did, I think, $3.3 million for week one, the first game, the DC game. $3.3 million, and last year they did $580,000 in the same window.
Right.
So, from their standpoint, they're like, "Hey, we'll take it. This is a dead time of the year for us, and that's, do the math. I mean, that's a significant uptick for that particular network, and Fox, similar situation."
So how is the league making money? Because, correct me if I'm wrong here, with those TV deals, those aren't like, the XFL is not getting paid by ESPN, ABC. They're the same,
No,
Fox.
they're not making money.
Right. So
they budgeted to lose $350 million. That's what they budgeted.
So are they going to try and take those week one numbers to advertisers now and set, like, is that how they're going to try and make money?
No, they're going to try to make money in the fourth year of this year.
They're not even
league.
Trying to get advertising dollars or anything.
No, they're very limited revenue streams. Fox and ABC control the advertising. That's why you pay for TV rights.
Gotcha.
So they control that. So you have merchandise, you have ticket sales, you have things like that, but those are very limited. I don't think people understand. Even in the NFL, NBA, big-time sports, you talk about jersey sales, they're irrelevant compared to TV rights. It's a drop in the bucket for every single sport. So the goal is, and that was the business plan, $350 million. They are prepared to lose that amount of money. And then in the fourth year, there's supposed to be a big check. And that's what I said yesterday on the show. And if these ratings hold up, there will be a big check in that fourth year.
And that's the challenge. I mean, so the last time, as we mentioned, 15 million viewers, and then it went to record lows after that. But that's because the play was so poor. They rushed that league to try to get it on the field, and people just went away. Do you think the play warrants that it will hold steady in this area? Or do you believe that it had 3.3, that's great, but we're going to be falling back into the 1.5, somewhere in that range?
Well, that's the key. If it goes from 3.3 to half, say 1.5 to 1.8, somewhere in that range, that's not good. If they can stay near 2.5 to 3, that's really good. If they can improve, which never happens, that would be unbelievable. I think the number they're trying to hit is 2.5. If they stay 2.5 and above, and the key is winning in that 18 to 49 demo, if they continue to win in that every week,
Right.
they're going to make a lot of money.
Yeah, and let me ask you this. You were there. You watched a lot of the games on Saturday, too. Are there things that stand out that you think they need to fix, or the things they need to fix, the unfixable thing, which means, well, you need better talent?
Yeah, that's a big you can't fix that because they can't pay the players. You know, we did a little bit yesterday on Colin Kaepernick. You can't bring in people like that who want significant money because it blows up the entire budget, and you're out of business. So this is the level of talent you're going to see. You do have a hardcore group. I think that's, you're not going to reach a mass audience because it is a hardcore group of football fans who want more football and want to see a decent product with high-level talent that's not in the NFL, sort of guys that can maybe make a run if everything goes correctly. That's the best you're going to get. So the only thing I think they can improve on is how they do the games, and I think it was tremendous to start. I think the rules were great. I saw somebody tweet today, and I forget, I'd like to give them credit. Why was the XFL officiating better than the NFL officiating? Well, it wasn't. They just haven't over-legislated the game to, which I talk about all the time, to a ridiculous, overbearing standpoint. And that's what the NFL has done. And that's what people are upset about. They're not upset about the calls. They're upset about the rules. I say it all the time. They're overbearing. They don't let you breathe. So on the field, the product, how they've set up the game, we talked about the kickoffs, we talked about the extra points, being able to go for 1, 2, 3, making each play competitive, letting the fan base into the coach communication, the official communication, all that is good. So you just sharpen that up. There were obviously some hiccups just because they haven't done it before. So from a technical standpoint, you'll continue to sharpen that up, and it should get better. You only can make one first impression. They made a good first impression. This is the product. Talent level can't go up, so you're just trying to get that 2.5 to 3.5 million people.
What about and I don't think this will ever happen, but I'm going to throw it out there. Correct me if I'm wrong with the AAF. They were allowing players to go to the NFL if the opportunity presented itself. Now with the XFL, why can't they eventually try and work a deal out with the NFL where second and third string quarterbacks in the offseason can go start for the New York Guardians and make $350,000 in this offseason time frame, and then go report to camp for the New York Giants?
Yeah, that was Tom Dundon's big plan when he tried to rescue the AAF, was to try to make it, in essence, a feeder league, a minor league, a subsidy of the NFL. The NFL has shown no interest in that. Yeah. And they've shown no interest in that because they already have a feeder system that's really good, and that's college football. So they don't need it, and it's free. So they don't have to subsidize something that's, in essence, because if you look at it that way, then the NFL would be on the hook for those $350 million of losses over 3 years and then in perpetuity from there, because the goal wouldn't be to make money. It would just be a minor league, like minor league baseball or the G League. And the NFL has no interest in that. And then from the standpoint of, and I think quarterback is the most position where people will have some difficult decisions, because I do think you get better live reps. But I talked about this with Jeff Stoutland and last year with Jordan Mailata, because a lot of people brought up, well, why don't you let him go play in the AAF? And he's like, hey, I don't want my guys with other coaches. The NFL's not going to let its players. You know how these coaches are. They think everything in their scheme and their system is, hey, we don't want any outside voice talking to these players, period. That's the way the NFL thinks.
All right, that's this weekend, more XFL, and we'll see if the audience is there. The gambling audience didn't seem to be there. Only $10,000 placed Vegas, so people wanted to learn before they put their money. Smart people out there. They didn't want to just burn
I'll
money.
give a shout-out to my buddy, the Philly Godfather. There's sharps and squares. Anybody who thinks they knew anything about the XFL is kidding themselves. I mean, nobody knew. And I'll give you a perfect example of that was Aaron Murray, because everyone said, well, that's the best quarterback in this league. He was the worst quarterback, at least through week one.
He was the most known.
Exactly.
All right, Johnny Mac's back tomorrow with more NFL football at 4 here on the Sports Bash.
Thanks, Johnny.
All right, thanks, guys.